The world you wake up in every morning feels solid. You touch the walls of your home, you check the balance in your bank account, and you follow the same route to work that you've taken for years. This sense of permanence is the greatest illusion of the human experience. We are born into a specific season of history, and because that season is all we've ever known, we mistake it for the climate itself. But seasons change, and right now, the temperature of the global machine is shifting in a way that most people are psychologically incapable of processing. If you look closely at the mechanics of the last 50 years, you'll see a period of unprecedented stability, a long summer. During this summer, the rules were simple, debt was cheap, globalization was expanding, and the currency you held in your hand maintained a predictable relationship with the goods on the shelf. We built our entire lives, our retirement plans, and our definitions of safety on these specific conditions. But what happens when the summer ends? Most people are still wearing light clothes and planning garden parties, completely oblivious to the fact that the first frost has already touched the ground. I have spent decades analyzing the patterns that govern the rise and decline of systems. What I've learned is that the most dangerous moment for any individual is not the crisis itself, but the period of denial that precedes it. We are currently in that period. We are witnessing a massive restructuring of the world order, yet we try to fix it using the tools of the era that is dying. This isn't just about money. It's about a fundamental lack of radical reality. It's about the inability to see that the bridge we are driving on was never meant to last forever. By the way, if you want to master the full ecosystem behind this, I've curated a special sequence for you in the top card. It's the roadmap most people are missing. To navigate what's coming, we have to deconstruct the linear trap. This is the biological bias that leads us to believe that tomorrow will be a slightly adjusted version of today. In nature, nothing moves in a straight line forever. Trees don't grow to the sky. Heartbeats have a rhythm of expansion and contraction. Even the stars have life cycles. Yet in our daily lives, we expect a straight line of progress. We expect our house prices to always go up, our currencies to always hold value, and our societies to always remain cohesive. This linear expectation is a blindfold. It prevents you from seeing the massive circular gears that are turning beneath your feet. Think about the year 1928 or 2006. In those moments, the common sense of the day suggested that prosperity was a permanent fixture of the modern world. People who warned of a shift were laughed at. They were called doomers or cynics. But they weren't being cynical. They were simply reading the mechanics. They saw that the debt had reached a level where it could no longer be serviced by real productivity. They saw that the incentives had shifted from creating value to extracting wealth. When the shift finally happened, it felt like a black swan, a random, unpredictable disaster. But it wasn't random. It was the inevitable result of the previous 50 years of cause and effect. The machine we live in is currently overheating. You can feel it in your daily life, even if you can't quite name it. You feel it when you notice that despite working harder, your purchasing power is evaporating. You feel it when you see the internal friction in your country, the polarization that seems to defy logic. These are not random headaches. These are the sounds of the gears grinding as the machine reaches the end of a long-term debt cycle. Ray Dalio's work focuses on this specific mechanism because it is the most powerful force in the modern world. Every big shift in history, the fall of the Dutch Empire, the transition of the British pound to the U.S. dollar, the rise of new global powers, followed the same mechanical script. And the script always begins with an excess of debt and a devaluation of the currency. If you are playing the game of life with a handbook written in 1990, you are in grave danger. The rules have changed, but the announcements haven't been made yet. The machine is incentivized to keep you in the dark for as long as possible. Why? Because the system needs your participation to maintain the illusion of stability while the elites reposition themselves. If everyone realized the shift was happening at once, the transition would be a chaotic collapse. To prevent that, the devaluation happens slowly, then all at once. It's like Hemingway's description of going bankrupt. Gradually, then suddenly. The problem is that our daily lives are designed to keep us focused on the gradual part. We focus on the daily news cycle, the latest social media outrage, or the minor fluctuations in interest rates. We are so busy watching the ripples that we don't see the tsunami on the horizon. To survive and grow in the coming decade, you must stop being a victim of the now and start becoming a student of the always. You must look for the patterns that have repeated for 1,000 years. History repeats because human nature never changes. We are still driven by the same fear of loss and the same greed for more. When we feel wealthy, we borrow more than we can afford. When we feel threatened, we turn on our neighbors. These biological impulses are the software that runs the economic hardware. When you understand the software, the hardware's movements become predictable. You stop being surprised by crises and start seeing them as opportunities for restructuring. But before you can find the opportunity, you have to face the structural rot. Our global foundation, the money we use, is essentially a series of promises. And right now, there are more promises than there is reality to back them up. The world has more debt than it has the capacity to produce wealth to pay it back. When this happens, there is only one mathematical outcome: a reset. This reset can happen through inflation, through default, or through a massive transfer of wealth. Usually, it's a combination of all three. The people who fail during this shift are those who hold on to the symbols of the old world. They hold on to currency that is being printed into oblivion, or they stay in careers that were built for a globalized era that is currently retracting. They are like sailors trying to use a map of the Mediterranean to navigate the Atlantic. No matter how hard they work or how skilled they are, the map is wrong. And if the map is wrong, the destination is impossible. In this series, we've explored the basic mechanics. But here in this 9th chapter, we are moving into the psychology of the transition. This is where the unthinkable starts to enter the room. This is the moment where you must choose between the comfort of the lie or the utility of the truth. Radical reality isn't just a philosophy. It's a survival mechanism. It's the ability to look at your bank account, your career, and your country and say, what if the rules that got me here are the very things that will hold me back tomorrow? Are you ready to see the gears? Because once you see them, you lose the ability to be a victim. You realize that you have the power to position yourself on the right side of the shift But that positioning requires a level of detachment that most people find uncomfortable. It requires you to stop being a believer in the system and start being an observer of the machine. Let's talk about the first gear that is currently failing, the incentive of devaluation. In any system, the people in charge want to stay in charge. When a government reaches a point where it owes more than it can ever collect in taxes, it faces a political death sentence. It can either cut spending, which makes people angry, or it can raise taxes, which makes people angry, or it can use the invisible gear, the printing press. When you print money, you aren't creating wealth, you're diluting the wealth that already exists. It's like adding water to a soup. There's more liquid, but there's no more nutrition. Most people don't notice the water being added because the price of the soup stays the same for a while. But eventually, the hunger sets in. That hunger is what we call inflation. But inflation isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature of the reset. It is the way the system defaults on its promises without ever having to admit it. If you are a saver, you are the one paying for this. Your life's work, stored in that currency, is the grease that keeps the failing machine turning for a few more years. Understanding this gear changes everything about your daily life. You stop looking for safety in currency and start looking for safety in productivity. You realize that the machine is literally designed to punish those who wait. This is the first step toward the architect's lens, the realization that in a world of shifting rules, the only true security is the ability to adapt faster than the system can devalue you. While the gears of incentives and time provide the skeletal structure of the machine, it is the third gear that provides its volatile energy, the psychology of the crowd. You see, the economy isn't just a collection of spreadsheets and cold charts. It is a massive, breathing manifestation of human emotion. Under pressure, human biology follows a path that hasn't changed in 10,000 years. We move from greed and overconfidence to fear, and eventually to a state of collective paralysis. In the late stages of a cycle, like the one we are navigating right now, a specific psychological phenomenon occurs. The wealth gap begins to feel like a physical weight on society. People sense that the system is no longer functioning for them, but because they lack the practical lens we've been discussing, they don't look at the gears. Instead, they look for enemies. This is when populism rises, polarization hardens, and the social fabric starts to fray. This psychological gear is what turns an economic slowdown into a systemic shift. When people lose faith, not just in the currency, but in each other and the future, their behavior shifts from building to protecting. They stop investing in the long term because the short term feels like a battlefield. This leads us to the most profound systemic error I see today: the belief that you can find safety by doing what everyone else is doing. In most periods of history, following the crowd is a decent survival strategy. It's called social proof. But during a big shift, the crowd is exactly who gets liquidated first. The crowd is always the last to realize the rules have changed because the crowd is heavily invested in the old rules. They are emotionally and financially anchored to a reality that is already evaporating. Think about the concept of safe havens. For 40 years, the world was told that government bonds and cash in a bank were the definition of safety. And they were. During a period of low inflation and expanding global cooperation. But we are no longer in that season. The mistake isn't just a financial one, it's an error of perspective. Most people look at the news and see a chaotic series of random bad luck events. They see a pandemic, then a war, then an energy crisis, then a banking failure. They treat these as separate fires to be put out. But if you look through the lens of the machine, you realize these aren't random. They are lagging indicators of a system that has lost its balance. When a system is out of balance, when debt is too high and trust is too low, it becomes fragile. A fragile system turns every small spark into a massive fire. The spark isn't the problem, the fragility is. Most people spend their energy complaining about the spark while staying inside the burning house. They wait for normal to return, not realizing that normal was the very state of imbalance that caused the fire in the first place. This reliance on a return to the past is what keeps the middle class trapped. They are waiting for a world that no longer exists. You must understand that the system's primary goal right now is not to protect your lifestyle. It is to protect its own existence. This means the institutions you were taught to trust, the central banks, the large corporations, the political frameworks, are now incentivized to act in ways that may be directly harmful to your personal stability. If they have to choose between a systemic collapse and devaluing the money you've worked your whole life to save, they will choose devaluation every single time. It's the path of least resistance. It is the invisible reset that allows the machine to keep turning while the passengers lose their seats. So, how does a person who sees these gears actually live their life? How do they wake up on a Tuesday morning and navigate this? They move from being a cog in the machine to being an operator of their own destiny. This starts with a total reevaluation of what you own and what you owe. In a shifting cycle, your greatest liability isn't just your debt, it's your dependency. If your survival depends on a single system, one currency, one employer, one country's infrastructure, you are fragile. In the coming decade, fragility is the most expensive thing you can own. The individual with the practical lens prioritizes sovereignty over status. They realize that a luxury car or a prestigious title is a liability if it anchors you to a sinking ship. They start to value optionality. This means having assets that aren't just numbers on a screen controlled by a third party. It means investing in real capital, skills that are globally tradable, networks of trusted people, and physical assets that have intrinsic value regardless of what the currency of the day is. It's about building a life that is anti-fragile, a concept that describes things that actually gain from disorder. This requires the ultimate removal of the ego. To thrive in the next decade, you must be willing to admit that the success you achieved under the old rules might not translate to the new ones. You have to be willing to be wrong about your past beliefs to be right about the future. Most people cannot do this. Their identity is too tied to their current position in the machine. They would rather go down with the ship than admit the ship has a hole in the hull. But you are here because you sense the vibration in the gears. You feel the friction. You are already looking for the exit. The transition we are facing, this big shift, is a mechanical necessity. It is the forest fire that clears the dead wood so that new growth can begin. For those who are caught in the dead wood, it is a tragedy. For those who understand the cycle, It is the moment where true wealth and freedom are forged. If you're finding this level of depth valuable and you're ready to stop being a victim of the machine, make sure you've subscribed to the channel. The final block of this series is where we tie all these threads into a single, cohesive philosophy for the next decade. The system never changes, only the players do. Throughout history, the names of the currencies change. The names of the empires change. The technology evolves from sails to steam, and from steam to silicon. But the human cycle remains identical. We over-leverage, we overreach, we devalue, and then we restructure. This is the eternal pattern. By studying these mechanics over these last 9 videos, you haven't just learned about the economy. You have learned about the rhythmic heartbeat of civilization itself. You have learned that peace and prosperity are just one phase of a larger, more complex breathing pattern of history. As we approach the 10th and final video of this specific series, ask yourself, am I still playing the game of the last century, or am I preparing for the reality of the next one? The big shift is coming, but it doesn't have to be a tragedy for you. It can be the moment your foresight finally pays off. It can be the period where you move from the crowd to the inner circle of those who understand the rules. But that transition requires more than just watching a video. It requires a fundamental death of the ego. You must be willing to let go of the linear trap and embrace the cyclical nature of reality. Which rule stood out the most to you today? Was it the cash trap, the incentive gear, or the realization that the forest needs to burn to be reborn? Write it in the comments below. Your insights help others see the gears too. Your perspective is a tool for the community. If this video cleared your mind and gave you a lens to see through the fog, click the like button. For more content that pierces the surface of daily life, follow our journey here. We are only just beginning to peel back the layers of the systems that govern our existence. The machine is moving. The gears are turning. The only question left is, are you in the way, or are you at the controls? I will see you in the final chapter, where we will map out the roadmap for the next 10 years.